Hello, what's up, YouTube people? I know I'm kind of trapped in a little small space right now, but I decided I wanted to post a video for you guys about my impressions of the Penn Torque spinning reel. There's not a lot of videos on YouTube that have a lot of information, so just kind of want to talk about the reel a little bit. Um, Here's a Penn Torque. This is size 7. I've had it for about 6 months now, and honestly, I'm haven't or was not a big fan of Penn until this reel came around. I like it a lot. My decision to go with this reel, because I was technically, not technically, but I was in the market for a Stella or even a new saltiga, but I don't do a lot of offshore fishing. I'm going to increase that, but as of now, I don't do a lot. I do a lot of surf fishing and jetty fishing, and I target, larger stingrays and sharks. So I need a good quality heavy-duty reel. Now, some of you guys that are probably watching are probably saying to yourself, why not just get a Saltis or a Saragossa? Well, I have that too. This is a Saltis 6500, and this is like a Teflon to stop the line from slipping when I load it up with braid. And this is, of course, the Saragossa 18,000, both of which are great reels. The Penn Torque is on a completely different level of a reel. This reel, honestly, can be mentioned in the same breath as a Stella or a Saltiga. Now, some of you who probably own those reels who don't own this guy are probably shaking your head right now. Believe me, this reel can. Because what makes a reel what makes a great reel is, of course, a great drag system, the anti-reverse, which locks the line, stops any type of backplay, and gearing. That's really the difference. Everything else is kind of a nuance of that. The gearing in the Penn Torque is superior to those two reels I just showed you, the Saltis as well as the Saragossa. Now, uh, many people who are new to high-end and heavy-duty fishing, and I've seen this myself, they'll get on YouTube and they'll grab their Saltis or their Saragossa and say, you know what, you don't need to buy a Saltiga because you can get this, or you don't need to buy a Stella because you can have your Saragossa. The reason why they're saying that is because these reels offer similar drag performance in theory, to the flagship products from both corresponding companies. The problem is that, and they do, they absolutely do. The drag systems on the Saltis and the Saragossa, they're great. The problem, however, is the gearing, the gears. They're not the same level. They're not even remotely close to the same quality, and that's really what you pay for. So while in theory, this reel can put out a max drag of 33 pounds and the Saragossa of 44 pounds. By the way, I don't know, the drag feels just as strong, if not stronger, in this reel, but that's neither here or there. Um, Companies measure that based on the drag stack. So when you look at a review of a reel, a Fenor I'll use as a perfect example. The top of the line Fenor reel can supposedly pump out 60 pounds of maximum drag pressure. That's great. I believe that the real drag stacks can actually do that because it has dual drags, just like the Penn Torque, meaning that there is a drag stack on the bottom of the spool as well as one on the top. And that's great for really high-end, smooth drag, right? Because it's not as much heat and other things. The problem with that is that reel itself can't sustain that. Not many reels can, and I don't know any human beings that can. That's a lot of drag. But yeah, the components in the reel just can't do it. Things are going to break well before you get to that number. And that is why you buy a Saltiga or a Stella. However, you may also get online and you may hear people catch, tuna 100 pounds or under, and even sometimes above with a Saltis or a Saragossa. That can certainly be done. I mean, it's been done before, but not on a consistent basis without some type of real failure. So that's why you hear guys rather than buy one Stella, they'll just buy 3 of these and go on a trip. If one fails, they have 2 more to go. But that's going to really be the differentiating factor between these mid-range, and they're great for what they do, spinning reels, to a Penn Torque. So back to the Torque. Let's do a quick size comparison. I'm pretty sure many of you guys are curious about the size. This is a size 7, like I said before. This reel looks better in person than it does online, honestly. That's kind of one reason why I pulled the trigger, because online, the pictures make it look very cheap and cheesy. This reel actually has a very nice high-end look in person. Now, I don't necessarily like the butt, but it's kind of growing on me. But it looks very good in person. This reel is a completely sealed reel. So when I say sealed, think of Van Staal, think of Z-Bass. This reel can be dunked. You can put sand on it. You can do this underwater. Nothing's going to happen to it. I would never do that with the Stella or Saltiga, or really even one of these reels. This is not a girthy reel, meaning that it's skinny, but it's very long. But size comparison, it's going to compare nicely to the larger sizes of the Daiwa Saltis. Kind of see this here. And the spool is kind of tilted up. Let's see if I can get that to come down. Alright. So the Daiwa Saltis. Let me try to get this lined up. Alright. And Penn Torque. Alright. Here we go. So you can kind of see, there we go. The Penn Torque is just a little bit longer. And this is the biggest Saltis, by the way. And this is, if I can get this to behave, this is the Saragossa. So I would say this is definitely closest to the size of the Saragossa. But what I will show you is that it's not as wide. So, and that's what I mean by girthy. If you look at the Saltis and look at the Penn Torque 7, there's a big difference. Line capacity is actually not bad on the Penn Torque. It's not going to hold the same amount of line, or not near the same amount of line as those two guys. I would say line capacity is probably like a Saltiga 5000 or Saltis 5000, a spinning reel. On the Saragossa, I don't know if there's a size comparison. If you had a Stella 10,000 and you upgrade to a 16,000 size spool, that's probably like a Penn Torque 7. So overall, a great reel. Like I said, I like it a lot. One last thing that I did want to tell you before I go is if you're thinking about ordering one, and I have a movie on in the background, training day, so please forgive me. If you're thinking about ordering one, there's some important details when you get it. Because Penn changed a design flaw. Oops, push this down. Penn changed the design because there was a design flaw. On the main shaft of, oh man, I can't get this right. I'm sorry, guys. On the main shaft of the, on the older model, there is a pin physically going through the shaft rather than a shimmable, I don't know what you would call this thing, but I guess a plate, a shimmable plate. Alright? So, when I purchased this reel, it was not a upgraded version. I've had this guy, like I said, about 6 months. It was not an upgraded version. The customer service at Penn was wonderful. You can either mail your reel back into them and they'll do it, or if you're even a little bit, and I mean a little bit handy, you can do it yourself. It's pretty easy. The problem with the initial models was that because the spool wasn't shimmable, if you had funky line lay, you couldn't do anything about that. And what I mean by shimmable is pretty much washers that you can stick beneath the spool to control where the line wraps at, right? And then two, this is the rotor, right? This part right here, this is the rotor. The arms on the rotor were flexing into the spool under really high drag settings, and we're talking about super high, like 26 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, and up for the size 7 and the size 9. And so this guy, which is made to flex but not touch the spool, was physically touching the spool and creating all sorts of problems. This reel is very just it's a simple design, and I think that's another reason why I love it. A lot of high-end reels, to maintain warranty and things of that nature, you have to send them in yearly and pay a yearly fee to do that. This reel, you can service yourself, really, and I mean, really, it's really that easy. But back to what I was saying. If you notice, on this arm, there are 2 screws there. This, of course, opens the actual part of the arm, but they're mounted with 2 screws. This is not a decoration. They actually have a point. They mount directly to the rotor. And so that was the design flaw that needed to be changed. So rather than having to, you know, go back and bend more metal and not bend, but physically create more of these, they actually just corrected this. Now, if you look at any other traditional reel, let's look at the Saltis. That's actually, I'm going to say my Saltis is probably the second favorite of my reels. There's no screws, which means that if there was a design flaw, if you were an earlier adopter, you were pretty much stuck. But not with Penn. They just made it where these parts can be easily upgraded, and that's exactly what I did. And honestly, it's easy and it works just as it did as the day I got it. There's 2 pieces that you really have to update. They're going to send you one arm, and then the shaft that goes in the middle, this part. And it's so easy to break apart. There's just 4 screws that you remove on each side of the reel, and take a screw out of some of the gearing and pop it out. It's super easy. I'm going to actually post links on how to update and reviews. If you guys are interested in really any type of spinning gear, there's a guy by the name of Alan Hawk. He reviews most of the popular spinning gears that are out there. And this guy, excuse me, I'm going to call him a girl, this guy is world-renowned. I mean, he's a genius in the way he explains things and makes things very technical. And this guy probably outfishes anybody I know on the planet, right? He travels all over the world and tackles some of the biggest fishing game you can imagine on spinning gear. So his opinion weighs very heavy. He actually has the Penn Torque rated number 3 of the best reels in the world. And that means a lot. But just in my own estimation, not fishing, you know, heavy things, right? I haven't been offshore with this reel and fished anything super heavy. I have managed to catch a very large stingray on this guy. I want to say the stingray was estimated at maybe 90 pounds. If any one of you have fought a big stingray, these things, they're probably going to be the closest to huge fighting big game that you're going to get inshore. Like, they're beasts. But this reel handled it flawlessly. I mean, the drag is awesome. But anyway, yeah, he rates the reel very highly. If you break down and just crack open the reel and look at the gears, then you kind of get a better idea. And that's really, when you're fighting a fish at very high drag levels, other than the drag components itself, it's really the body and the gearing of the reel that takes the brunt of that. And that's really going to separate the difference, and of course minor technologies and stuff like that, but that's going to really separate the high-end reels versus, you know, some of the mid-range and so on and so on. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer you. But if you're thinking about pulling the trigger on a Penn Torque, it's an awesome reel. I love it. It's probably my favorite go-to reel, and it has dual purposes. I don't feel strange fishing with this thing off a beach or on a boat. It can do it both. On the flip side, if I had a Stella, yeah, I don't know if you would catch me fishing with the Stella off of the beach. I mean, that reel is just, it's awesome. And same difference with the saltiga. Those are primary boat reels. That's kind of what they're made for. And you can, and don't get me wrong, I've seen guys fish with them. But you don't want to get sand in a Stella. You don't want to get sand in a saltiga. You don't want to dunk a Stella, really. Or dunk a saltiga. This is made to be dunked. It's a completely sealed reel. So, anyway, not to continue to blab, this has been my video of the Penn Torque 7. And like I said, I think it's an awesome reel. If you're on the fence about it, don't be. Play with it and get it. And it's not as stiff to turn as a Van Staal or a Z-Bass. And it's cheaper, and the drag is on a whole different level. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me show you guys one more thing. I'm going to go after this. But this guy has dual drags. So there's drag stacks on the top, and there is drag stacks on the bottom. The primary drag being on the bottom. And just for an example, I'll show you a regular top drag base reel, like a Saragossa. If I can get this thing out. Alright. So, Saragossa. There's nothing, right? The drag at the top. Primary benefit of that is better high-end drag performance. I'm not going to say theoretically, because it's true that they just offer better high-end drag. Not to say that you can't get a front drag reel that offers high-end drag. That's great. Saltiga is a prime example of that. But there is a reason why in the high-end Stellas, or the bigger Stella models, the 18,000 and 20,000 SW, you have this on the bottom. It's just easier to fish high drag for a very long time with those reels without running into any problem. Not to say, once again, that you can't do it on a Saltiga, because it certainly can be done. But if you recall, with the first Saragossas that came out, under very high runs, under high drag tensions, you were getting the drag cap melting. The reason that was happening is because the smaller drags, well, let me explain this to you. When you have smaller drags doing high-end drag, it creates a boatload of heat, right? Because there's not a way to properly dissipate that, it's not that the heat can't be dissipated, it's that you have a concentrated amount of rotation. It takes more rotational force and smaller drags to create a certain amount of output. With a bigger drag, like the ones that you would have on your Penn Torque, even the Fenora, and the Stella reels, it's easier to do high-end drag without the heat giving you better drag performance. Heat breaks down components. It causes fading and things of that nature. So that's pretty much it. I think Penn, like I said, I think Penn did a great job on the reel. It's an awesome reel. I love it. It's very smooth by any standard. It is not going to be as smooth as a Stella or a Saltiga. If that's what you're thinking, you're going to be disappointed. The handle is not going to be as easy to turn just because it has seals. It is, for a sealed reel, the easiest thing to turn. It's extremely smooth for a sealed reel. This reel is probably as easy to turn as a, I would say maybe 90% of what a Saragossa or Saltis is to turn, which for a sealed reel is pretty good. But anyway, that is my time. Comments, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer back. Hope I wasn't too long-winded, and hopefully I explained a little something about this reel.